What is going to be the best Burning Crusade dungeon leveling group for your class? This I'll try to cover in this video. Before I highlight the different groups, then make sure to always bring a healer with a resurrection spell, so a shaman, paladin or priest. The reason for not mentioning a druid is because your combat res has a way too long cooldown. And in case a couple of players ends up dying, you will also need to wait minutes before you're ready to proceed, as you gotta wait for them to get back into the dungeon. Another thing to be aware of is that no matter what class or specialization you're playing, then don't worry, you will be able to find a decent amount of dungeon groups. There will of course also be people who would like to make the best possible group for their setup to level as efficient as possible, but a lot of those players are probably already in a guild and playing with their guildies. First I'll cover different melee setups I like to use, and then moving on to spellcaster groups. The first setup will look like this. The reason for bringing a feral tank is because of Leader of the Pack that benefits the warriors with 5% more melee crit. Windfury Totem is provided by the shaman, which makes this comp so insane. And in case the shaman or everyone ends up dying, it can always use reincarnation to resurrect itself, and that way also res the entire party. And don't forget, with this setup we also got Rebirth, a combat res provided by the druid. Another solution is to swap around some of the different roles. So instead of having Leader of the Pack, we are now getting a way better Windfury Totem provided by the Enhancement Shaman. Another reason for bringing this specialization into the party is because whenever the Shaman crits, it's also going to provide a party buff, increasing everyone's attack power by 10% for 10 seconds. You could any day swap one of these warriors with a rogue, as they're also doing decent DPS. Another reason for bringing a rogue is because of their crowd control and different stunts. For some fights you might not be able just to blast through everything, and this is where crowd controls becomes way more handy, especially as we progress into higher level dungeons. You might also want to swap the different roles if you prefer to have 5% more crit instead of having better Windfury Totem and 10% more attack power. In this case the warrior is still tanking and the druid is playing as feral DPS. If you feel like the feral has better threat, you could let the feral tank and the warrior play as DPS. If you feel like the group starts to lack CC, then you could always replace a warrior with a hunter. Hunter has amazing crowd control, as Freezing Trap can be used in combat in the Burning Crusade, and if the hunter is playing MM, you're also getting True Shot aura. In addition to this, Hunter is doing insane single target damage and also very well when it comes to cleaving with the multi-shot. Another DPS you can bring into this setup is going to be the Paladin. Paladin provides Blessing of Might, and when they're playing Retribution, they also got improved Blessing of Might, granting even more attack power. Another big benefit with the Paladin is Blessing of Protection. A 10 seconds physical shield you can cast on anyone, so if the healer gets a lot of aggro, you can also protect him or her from dying. The Paladin can also sacrifice itself with Divine Intervention and protect the healer for up to 3 minutes. During this buff, the healer will also not be attackable and will leave combat, so if your party is about to wipe, you can cast this on your healer, or anyone capable of resing. And because we also got a shaman in the group, then you have 2 ways to pretty much also prevent a wipe, or at least prevent the entire group from having to run back into the dungeon and get to the same location. Another setup I like is going to be the following, and we still got the different protection buffs provided by the Paladin, and Blessing of Might. The Shaman providing better Windfury Totem and also 10% more attack power. The Feral Tank, Leader of the Pack, for 5% more melee and range crit. Pretty insane, especially because we also got a warrior with Battle Shout, so our overall attack power will be increased by a high amount. If the warrior is playing Fury, it might also have chosen Piercing Howl for better control. Else you have the rogue who can always zap and blind the targets. But like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, it's not like you have to run these melee comps to level up efficiently. You can do just fine, and there will be parties just looking for 1 tank, 1 healer and 3 DPS, no matter their specialization and class. Alright, moving on to the different spellcaster groups I prefer to use. The first setup, 1 Pala tank, a healer priest and 3 mages. The reason for bringing mages into this setup is because of the Blizzard. No cooldown and it does a lot of AoE damage, and when the mages are playing Frost, they can also improve this spell to add a slow effect. Therefore, the creatures is mainly never really hitting the tank, healer or DPS. Meanwhile, paladins are just using their consecration and dragging all the enemies into those, The Protection Paladin also brings Avenger Shield, a damage dealing ability that hits up to 3 targets for a high amount of damage and also dazing them for 6 seconds. I also like to replace one of these mages with a Warlock for Soulstone. This can be placed on the tank or the healer in case of a wipe. We also get Ritual of Summoning, so we can summon our party members, and for single target fights, Curse of the Elements, so you are dealing more damage to that specific target. Ideal for boss fights, as you won't always be able to AoE. You could also replace the Warlock with either an Elemental Shaman or Shadow Priest. Shadow Priest provides Misery, a debuff that increases the target's spell damage taken by 5%, and Vampiric Touch to restore mana to the entire party. The benefit of using an Elemental Shaman is Totem of Wrath, 3% more crit and spell hit to the entire party. As the Shaman reaches level 64, Wrath of Air Totem is unlocked, but this is not an elemental specific totem only, which is why you could replace your Healer Priest with a Resto Shaman, or replace your Shadow Priest with a Balanced Druid for the passive Mooncan Aura that increases everyone's spell crit by 5%, and this way we are also getting Rebirth, so we have a combat res to prevent an entire party from wiping. Now some of you might also be curious, how come there's always 2 mages in these setups? Mages can polymorph, and with 2 of these you're able to constantly CC 2 targets at the same time. So whenever you're doing a dungeon where there's going to be spellcasters or targets doing range damage, then the most important thing is just to CC those targets, so you will be able to cast your Blizzard without being interrupted. And this is why I like to bring 2 mages into my dungeon setups. In other situations, I'm just using 1 mage and then a Warlock and a Balanced Druid to get their benefits and utilities. If you feel like you're still lacking CCs, then you could always replace the Balanced Druid with a Hunter and benefit from the Freezing Trap. The main thing about Burning Crusade is of course just to have fun, so you could run whatever comp you would like to. That being said, if you wish to be efficient as a melee comp, make sure to bring a Shaman for the Windfury Totem, as this will overall increase your kill speed and that way also your leveling speed. As a spell cleaving group, you gotta make sure you're avoiding any spellcaster who is primarily only doing single target damage, else your kill speed will be reduced by a high amount. And try to bring a Protection Paladin, as those are the best for spell cleaving groups. This also brings us on to the last part of this video, the best role for your class. It is of course pretty obvious that those 4 right here will be forced to play as a DPS. But what about those of you playing a class who's able to fulfill many different roles? As a priest, I would highly recommend you to heal as either Discipline or Holy, as many people are usually not bringing Shadow Priest into dungeons until they reach max level. As a druid, you should either tank or heal, as it will be more difficult for you to find a party if you're playing either balance or feral DPS. As a paladin, you should also play as tank or healer. In fact, I believe tank is going to be better, as it will be easy for you to find a spell cleaving team, and spell cleaving teams are the ones leveling the quickest in dungeons. As a warrior, you can also tank, but you're not as great in a spell cleaving team compared to the paladin. You're way better in a melee cleaving team, or doing melee damage yourself as a DPS. A great melee cleaving team is combined together with a shaman. As a shaman, you can either play as healer. Here you'll benefit from your chain heal, healing many nearby targets at the same time, great for a melee comp, or enhancement for better Windfury Totem and also 10% attack power for the entire party. I know Elemental has access to Windfury Totem, but else they're not really providing anything else useful to a melee team. In a spellcasting team, it is decent, but then again there's way better spellcasters, which is why most people would probably just bring you as a healer. If you enjoyed this video, then you will definitely also like my Burning Crusade Dungeon Leveling Guide, but also other Burning Crusade videos which can be found on my channel, and soon also a lot more that you don't want to miss, so make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. As always, thank you so much for watching and have an amazing day. Peace.